Now, whenever we start trading, there are a lot of information that's presented to us. There's a lot of videos that we see online, and there are a lot of different currency pairs that are there in different sessions. And more often than not, we get confused in which currency pair should you as a trader focus on. So I'm going to tell you exactly which currency pairs are more prevalent or have more volume in each session, so that it gets easier for you to identify. Maybe you should focus on pound yen, or maybe you should focus on USD CAD or gold or Australian dollar, whatever the case is. But at the end of it all, the whole idea would be for you to become a master at one currency pair. So before we talk about currency pairs, we need to understand what sessions there are. So first session you have is the Asian session. When we look at the Asian session, there are three major pairs that are open at that point. You have the Japanese yen, you have the Australian dollar, and you have the New Zealand dollar. Now, out of all these three, we have to identify which has the most volume, which means which currency is more strong in that session. Now, from my experience, my favorite way of trading the Asian session was to pair the Japanese yen with any other currency that's not open in the Asian session, which means that I would maybe look at pound yen, GBP, JPY, or I would look at USD yen, or I would look at Euro yen. And the whole reason why I would want to pair a currency which is not open in the Asian session with the yen is because, here's the thing, when you're looking at a currency pair, you're trying to figure out whether the currency pair is going to move up or it's going to move down. That's how the market moves. It either moves up or it moves down. And then the next idea is that if you're, let's say, for example, looking at Australian dollar yen, AUD JPY, now for you to know that if the currency pair is going to move up or down, you need to do analysis on the Australian dollar and the Japanese yen. So if you think Australian dollar and Japanese yen, this whole currency pair is going to move bullish, that means Australian dollar has to be strong and yen has to be weak, which is now double work. So I'm very lazy. I'm not that smart, as I've mentioned a lot of times before. So I would only focus on pound yen, because if I'm focusing on the currency pair pound yen, this means I only have to do analysis on yen. Whether yen is strong, this means the currency pair is going to move down. If yen is weak, this means the currency pair is going to move up. That's all what I had to do, right? So after this, when we move into the London session, in London session, there's also a lot of volume. I would say there's more volume in the London session than there is in the Asian session. So when you talk about the London session, you have pound open, you have euro open, you have gold. Gold has some volume. Gold also has a lot of volume in the Asian session as well. So you have pound, euro, and gold. Now, my favorite way to trade the London session was to pair pound yen against another pair, let's say like euro yen. So I would look at pound and yen. I would say, okay, you know what? We are moving in the London session. In London, pound has a lot of volume. So which currency pair can I trade in London? Which was like, okay, pound has a lot of volume. Let me pair a currency which is not open at that time, which was yen. Or let me pair a currency which is not open at that time, would be US dollar or Australian dollar or New Zealand dollar. You get my point? So I would always pair a currency with another currency which would be not open in that session. So if you're looking at the London session, I'm only focusing on pound yen, or I'm focusing on gold. Lately, I've been trading gold a lot because I've seen a lot of volume there is in gold in the London session. So that works really well. So whenever you're trying to trade the London session, the best currency pair for you would be the one which is only influenced by one currency. Because look at it this way, right? Let's say, for example, you have pound open and euro open. So now you have, okay, let's say euro and pound. So euro GBP, right? And if you think that the euro GBP is going to move up, you have to do analysis on the euro and you have to do analysis on the pound. So they're both having some sort of like a tug of war to see which one is going to be more strong and more weak so the whole currency pair can go up, or which one can be more weak and more strong so the whole currency pair can. And in some cases, if both currencies are strong, this means price is just going to consolidate. right? So it's gonna get even more tougher. So let's say now, for example, if you're only focusing on the euro and the yen, what do you have to do now? You only have to focus on whether the euro is going to be strong. If it's strong, the whole currency, euro yen, is going to move up. If euro is weak, then euro yen, the whole currency, is going to move down. It doesn't matter what the strength of the yen is during the London session, because yen is already closed during that time. Yen is not open, there's no volume. The only driving force there is between the currency pair euro-yen or pound-yen is the fact that euro is open and pound is open. There's a lot of volume being pushed in. So whenever you're looking at a session, let's say a London session or an Asian session, you're trying to focus on which currency has the most volume during that time, and whatever currency has the most volume during that time, pair that currency with another currency which is not open, which has low volume, so it's very easy for you to do analysis. Now when we're moving into the New York session, this is the session which has tremendous amount of volume. I would say the New York session has the most amount of volume out of all the Forex market. Now you have US dollar open, you have CAD open, you have pound, euro, gold is moving at that time. Like there's so much volume because this is where you have the overlap of London and New York. So with this overlap, it brings in a lot of volume that majority of the currency pairs are really rocking and rolling during this time. So here's what you got to do. Now, in the beginning, I used to trade USD CAD because I was living in Canada, and there was obviously Canada, there's CAD, and the US was right there. So we were trading USD CAD, and it was working out okay. I wouldn't say it was working out well, it was working out okay, but then we switched over to USD yen because we realized that if we're trading USD CAD, we're doing the double amount of work. We're looking at the US dollar and we're looking at the Canadian dollar, and then we're trying to do analysis that, okay, if we're looking at USD CAD, we're trying to figure out where price may go based on fundamentals and then based on price action. So we're like, okay, hold on, wait a minute. Let's focus on USD and yen, because if yen is closed at this time, we don't have to do analysis on the yen. We only have to do analysis on US dollar. So now things become a little bit more easier, because if we can say that, okay, the US dollar is strong, and technically if that makes sense, there are supports being formed or vice versa, that's it. That's all what we had to do, because we had to make things very simple. Now, a lot of times what guys would do is they would try to trade Australian dollar, yen in the New York session, and price is going to consolidate, right? Or you're going to try to trade New Zealand dollar in London session, or Australian USD, AUD USD during a London session when there's no volume. Here's some things that you do not have to do. Certainly don't do these things, right? Do not trade a currency pair that has no volume during a session. Like, for example, you're trying to trade pound USD in the Asian session. So if you think about it, pound USD in the Asian session, pound is closed, US dollar is closed, you're trying to trade that in the Asian session, there's definitely not going to be any volume, right? Price is probably not going to move, and you may complain, oh, price is just consolidating, right? Or you may try to trade USD CAD in the London session, which again will not make the best sense. It makes no sense at all. Or sometimes, we would get questions like, hey man, I tried to trade euro against the pound after London close around 12 p.m. Eastern time, and we're like, why are you trying to trade euro pound in the afternoon when the euro markets are closed and pound markets are closed? There's no volume driving between these currencies, so you can't do that. There are these things which you just do not do, okay? This is why price is going to consolidate. This is why you're going to be stuck in trades. So what you have to do is to summarize everything that we talked about today. Pick a session that you're going to focus on. Let's say you focus on the London session, right? You focus on the London session, then pick a pair to trade. My favorite pairs to trade in the London session is the pound against yen and gold. There's a lot of volume behind these two pairs in the London session, and there's enough volume for you to actually take very, very profitable trades. That's all what I do, because the whole point of choosing a currency pair and really sticking to that pair is so that you become a master of that pair. You need to become so affluent in that currency pair that whenever you take a look at that pair, you know exactly where it's going to go. And also want to point out one other thing to everyone is that if you choose, let's say, pound yen, or you choose gold, and you decide that you're going to trade the London session, stay away from the New York session. Don't do that, because you have to understand this one thing, and which you may understand this after a while when you get more mature into the markets. You will realize is that every currency pair has its own personality in every different session. If gold moves a certain way in the London session, it's not going to move the same way in the New York session, because now the US dollar is open, and that's that's really affecting the movement of gold. If pound yen moves a certain way during the London session, it may not move the same way in New York session. The same way if you choose, let's say, Canadian yen in the US session, don't trade that in the London session. If the same way you choose a currency pair in the US session, stick to that US session. Because that currency pair, it may only move that certain way in the US session, the New York session, and it may not move the same way in London session. It may not move the same way in the Asian session. So you have to stick to just one or two pairs. Choose those pairs which have a lot of volume in the session that you're trading and the session that you're trying to look at, because the whole idea is to become the master of your session and also become the master of the currency pair that you're going to choose to trade in that session. Take care, everyone, and make this a part of your trading plan.